Hello and welcome everyone. This is Lavender Sky Panther. Today is Wednesday, December 30th, 2020, and today's topic is called Sky Imprints and Objects. It's a collection of images and sky observations happening December 15th through the 17th, 2020. And before we get into those observations, I'd like to say good day, osio, hao, buongiorno, guten tag, kia ora, jambo, kedu, buenos dias, bonjour, ni hao, dzień dobry, konnichiwa, dobrohenia, annyeonghaseyo, boa tarde, dobry den, aloha winala, kalimera, and guten dag. And today's starter image is just of a nice hot chocolate with mini marshmallows and chocolate sprinkles on top. So again, warm greetings to all of you. If you're new, welcome to this channel. I appreciate you coming by. And if you are returning, thank you so much. Heartfelt thanks go out to all of you. All right, now we're going to start it off with a slide called Cloaking and Interdimensional Objects. This is the original photo. Going forward, you're going to hear me refer to some photos as original or enhanced. When I say enhanced or enhancements, it simply means I've edited attributes of the photo, such as contrast, brightness, color saturation, things of that nature, just to kind of highlight and better get at some of the points of interest happening in any given photo. You'll see what I mean coming up if this is new to you. And I hope you're watching some of my other shows and also other Earth and Sky watching channels on YouTube as well, just to see what's going on around the world and also in your area. I hope you're looking as well. Anyhow, as we get started, we've got a photo here. Right off the bat, I see this imprint forming. So it's just the kind of the void area showing a triangle. Well, we've got either plasma or water vapor or some other cloud material forming it. Then we have a hint of something happening here behind a smudged out area. And we start to see a structure like a patterning happening down here. So we're going to look at it with some enhancement, and here we go. We see this pattern happening, forming down here. To me, that's looking like a cloaking craft. And then up here, we have something that might be interdimensional being cloaked in front of whatever this is, kind of smudged out in appearance. There's a lot going on in this photo up in here as well that could be interdimensional activity. A lot of these photos coming up, there's going to be so much going on in them. I might not call out everything that's happening, but if you see something happening in any given photo and want to know more about it, please feel free to let me know in the comments section below, and I'll include it in a future show. For example, like these little weird bits where my cursor is might be actually little craft or sensors of some type if you've watched some of my other shows. And, given the fact that they're pitching down on angle while other things are more flat and straight, there's just a lot of disturbance, let's just say, happening in this whole area. That just points to me there's got to be a host of cloaking and interdimensional activity happening here. All right, here's another scene. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. There are quite a few slides to get into. And also, if you're pressed for time, just hop to the second half of the show. That's where the stuff gets real exciting. Otherwise, if you have the time, stay with me. You'll appreciate the stuff on the front end of the show as well. Anyway, there seems to be, again, a lot of this is not only just with your physical eyes looking at a given scenario in a scene, but it's also what your sixth sense is picking up. And, here I just see different types of cloud disturbance happening here and down here, and different consistency of things. And, these are all parallel angling down. Just kind of implies that something is going on in this scene. So we're going to look at it with some enhancement. And all I can really pull out of this one is maybe hints at triangular forms in the background here. Also, just like a multi-layering of things seems to be going on. And also this color signature is pretty intense for what I've been seeing lately at the sunrise. This is the same location. Anyway, let's move on. This one is just called Air Elementals and Imprints, ? So just seems to be a lot of air elementals happening around here. And if you look at some of my previous shows, you'll understand what I'm talking about there. It just means kind of an otherworldly or possibly even kind of supernatural phenomenon with some of these things, the way they float in. Oftentimes they also accompany a specific and rigid geometry for some reason. I don't know what the relationship is between them. But for example, it looks like these wisps kind of spill over a triangular shape if you follow my cursor. And I have other more clear examples in previous shows. Anyway, it looks like there's some kind of imprint formed down here as well. So we're going to look at this with some enhancement. Some of this kind of bleaches out and fades away, but I just want to show that there seems to be some golden, tones down in here where before we saw them being, red and orange. And then again, just emphasizing some of the nature of this wisp, and we see that triangular imprint a little bit better. It's a triangle kind of on its side on an angle. All right, this is called Cloaking Objects and Imprints, continued. So now we're looking at that area that I had noted before seemed like an imprint was forming. And it just seems like this whole territory, is like the negative or void with a very specific shape to it. And then here it seems like there's something happening that's very rigid in form. And down here I'm just noting there's this little speck that's going to hold true and stay white, even though things are going to change into different colors as we do some enhancements. So here we go. And this is what I mean. So this overall kind of void territory holds true. Looks like something's happening over here where my cursor is coming down. This starts to, become also more of a little structure here. And this point stays true white, and that always captures my attention because it usually means that something, let's just say either man-made or ET-made advanced tech when it does that. Anyway, again, if you look at some of my other shows, you'll see what I mean. There's some more clear examples about that. All right, so now we're just zooming in a little closer, and we're just looking at the two areas. So again, this starts to have a very rigid geometry to it. And, again, we're looking at this point that's staying white. All right, here's a similar scene of that imprint if you follow where my cursor is. But now up here where we have A, something else is starting to form, and you just see sharp angles here. That's undeniably a straight edge and a straight edge coming down. And then up at C, there's something starting to poke through here as well that looks like it has some structure and form to it, geometric form. So we're going to look at all of this with some enhancement as well. So here this imprint, this kind of shadow, stays true. So to me that's got to be some type of cloaking craft, maybe something interdimensional happening here, with this bar. Then we get this. Again, you can see these clear edges, and almost forming like a diamond where this brighter spot is becoming brighter. And then up here at C.1, again, we've got structure to this object starting to emerge a little more clearly. So this is another one of these photos where there's a whole lot going on. I'm going to move along for time's sake on the show, but you're going to see a whole lot of interesting things the more you look. All right, this is just a side-by-side. We're still looking at this area where those sharp edges were, side-by-side, just to see what, exactly is going on in here. There is a lot going on. Again, I'm going to leave this one, this particular slide for you guys to look at on your own time when you have a little more time. Okay, this is kind of a similar area. Things are morphing and changing. So we've got it like looks like an imprint, a wide outline of maybe a triangular form beyond. And then we've got this kind of movement here, starts to look interesting, the way these things are forming. Then we've got this object at B, and we have other little things starting to happen in here, darker shadows. So we're going to look at this with some enhancement. And here we go. We start to see these shapes look like standalone shapes hiding in there, and these little ellipsoidal things too. So I venture to say those are Cloaking Craft for sure. And I'm not exactly sure what's hiding in behind all of this wispy activity, but it seems like there might be something. And we're going to take a look at this in more detail on several different slides coming up. So here we go, we're zoomed in. And here we go, we see, again, these look like specific shapes. And then we start to see this tail, we'll just call it tail off the back of this thing, starts to look interesting. Things start to look like they're developing. And it also looks like there's a triangular form in here as well, this darker form. So to me, this has got to be some type of Cloaking Craft or crafts plural. We're going to look at it again. This is just kind of going, ahead in time a little bit and watching this thing. So here we start to get sharp angles at the point of this overall thing that was forming. And there's something over here happening with parallel line, and also specific form. So to me, this has got to be Cloaking Craft. And again, we look at the tail and it starts to develop in different ways. We're going to be watching that coming up in the next couple of slides. And look at this, things start to become rounded and more individualized and curved, all these curves. So again, I gotta believe this is one assembly composed of multiple Cloaking Craft. And then this is called Wisps, Imprints, and Cloaking Craft. On the left is the original, the right is the enhanced version. And look at this, we've got straight edges, looks like this is the one big triangle beyond some other type of imprints in front. And we've got sharp edges happening over here. There's just a lot going on in this photo that I can't really give you any answers on. This is one of those where there's going to be more question marks than answers. But look, we got another imprint of some type of shape here. And it just seems to be a lot of interdimensional overlay of layers. Not only these things, but there seems to be some parallel, darker, object lines or shapes happening, even in front of this thing. So see what you think it might be going on in this one. Okay, this is multi-dimensional imprints. And we look on the left-hand side at the original, started to see this imprint of a triangle and it was pretty clear to me what was going on. But with enhancement on the right-hand side, we see it even better. And to the point where when we go to A2, 8.2, you can, definitely trace, exact lines and even a circle. The more that we zoomed in, I could see there seems to be an imprint of an actual circle. And this triangle is either this big or, it could carry on, there's a trajectory of this line that goes on even this way. Or it could even be a rectilinear form coming this way where you see this bigger, darker shadow. It's really hard to see exactly what's going on here. But I invite you to have a look at this longer on your own time, see if you see anything else. Okay, now we're just going to zoom in on that triangle part a little bit, try to get at what is going on exactly. And as we do that, we notice this stuff, this kind of, whether it's a wisp or plasma or water vapor of some kind, I don't know. But look at these individualized kind of, not teardrop shape, but something like a off ellipsoidal form. Those are happening. So we're going to look at this with some enhancement. And here we go. We kind of see a little more going on with this kind of contrast and taking some of the color out of it. There's a darker shadow down here, and there's also now we see this kind of outline of this shadow. So exactly what's going on here, I don't know, but I just see an overlay of a lot of geometries. It's just a very curious scene going on here. And then we're going to look at it once again. I think this is the last one, where we have the imprint, and then we have this material off to each side, and we look to the right and look at the enhanced version. And it's just very clearly triangular, whatever is going on here. Also, this also looks like almost triangular as well. But as always, see what you think is happening in here. This starts to look interesting too off to the right with this kind of bar-like form. There's so many possibilities to what could be happening here. But again, see what you think. Alright, this one is multidimensional yin-yang imprints. I'm calling it that because on the left is the original, the right's the enhancement. And we look here, depending on how you look at this, you could look at this any number of ways. I have a little sketch down in the center at the bottom just showing you what some of these geometries can be. I just took this, this image and overlaid some sketch lines on it. So this could be a triangle kind of tilted. This can be a triangle tilted. The yin and yang or yin and yang is, you've got the dark and the light, and then the dark is in the light is in the dark, that kind of effect. But this overall thing could be like a oblique diamond shape. Just, have a look at this one and see what you think is going on. This is a bigger shape if you look at the original. It's bigger shadow imprint happening up here. See what you think. Okay, this is called Cloaking Craft. And here we have the top of a cloud, and what I like to do is refer you to a previous video that I made, and actually it's either rim watching to or on the rim. And I've just noticed in certain instances with certain backlighting and depending on the lighting conditions of the sun, you start to see different little things popping up right along the rim that absolutely look like craft or some advanced objects floating around or sometimes launching up from the top of the cloud. And you're going to see this coming up in other photos as well. So in this particular example where we have A, I just noticed these little bits that look like they had definite shape, the geometrical shape to them. They look a little out of place, not like just little mist or cloud vapor coming off. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So here we go with some contrast, some enhancement here, and we start to see these shapes, kind of, again, becoming in more to focus. So we're going to zoom in a little bit more. Here we start to see some holes even. Looks, regular, like asymmetrical two holes to this thing. So we're going to keep looking at it in some different ways. Here's again with some enhancement. We see that little object down there. And then we go up to the upper right-hand corner. We've zoomed in and done some enhancement even more to just get at what is this thing. I'm still at a loss for what these two little objects are, but they definitely don't look like just some stray vapor coming off of cloud. To me, that has intelligent design to it. And there was just a lot happening also beyond that looked like it would be Cloaking Craft or other activity happening beyond this overall scene. See what you think though, as always. So we're going a little bit further now where my cursor is at 8.4. There's another little object here. And at the same time we see an imprint that looks triangular beyond. Also little things poking here that looks tube-like. So there's a lot cloaking in this scene. And then we're going to look at it at 8.5. We start to see that object a little bit more. There's still something kind of happening here that looks like it has structure to it. Something even here too looks like it's poking out. And then we go to 8.6. We definitely see some type of object. And something happening up here as well. And then we look here, Cloaking Craft. It's that same cloud area or assembly, and we're looking at strange activity happening up here where my cursor is on the original on the left-hand side. And this is what I call staccato cloud. Usually when I just see something like this, it reminds me of that term staccato for music. And actually I learned later on too that there's actually a term called staccato lightning. I did not know that. But in this case, I'm just referring to when something looks really choppy with cloud material or vapor or plasma. Just doesn't look like typical natural clouds of any way, shape, or form. And then at the same time, they're kind of fuzzy and blurred when everything else is in focus. So that's what I'm referring to when I talk about that kind of cloud. And it also just might be an overall cloaking system that looks like that, which I think is what's happening here. I think we've got a Cloaking Craft right there. And then down here is back to that cloud where we were looking at those weird little objects just a moment ago. So we're going to look at the right-hand side at enhancement and look at this. So that one thing that I saw poking out on the previous slide, it looks like this is what's happening. And that we have a dark form behind here too. So to me, these are cloaking objects coming out of this thing. And then this gets real interesting where my cursor is. We've just done some enhancement, but it reveals some interesting color signatures happening here beyond. The cameras, this is just a kind of very low-tech camera phone, but the photosensitivity range is incredible, compared to our naked eyes. So it's always interesting. I love to see what kind of color signatures pop up with enhancements. All right, now this is just called Cloaking Craft. This is that same kind of cloud area, but a little bit later on. And this cloud, kind of drifted through, and I saw something interesting developing here. So we're looking at 8.1. It seems to have a little bit of a triangle to it as well. And then we go to 8.2, just with some more contrast to try to get at what is going on with this thing. But unfortunately, I think it yields more question marks than answers. But let's move on. Okay, this one is just Cloaking Craft again. Now this gets interesting. So where I have letter A, hang in there with me, I'm trying to get my cursor, here we go. Where I have letter A, it looks like this whole thing is like a sheet of something coming in down on this angle, this very straight angle. There seems to be a little bit of structure popping out here. That's why I think that's what's going on. Also, there seems to be a very crystalline triangle up here as well, telling me, indicating that that's got to be some type of Cloaking Craft or some type of sensor work, advanced tech up in there. And then B I noted because this looks like a pipe, like the end of one jutting out. So we're going to look at it to the right with enhancement, and sure enough, at B.1 I still see the end of that pipe here, or half pipe shape. And then up here, A1, this overall object becomes a little more revealed. And this crystalline structure holds true, even though I've enhanced the photo. So that tells me this thing is a part of whatever is happening on this little, sheet of something popping down. All right, we're going to zoom in on it a little bit more, though, to see if we can see anything else. And with even more contrast and enhancements on the photo, we still see this crystalline little light object holding true. And then we still see something happening in here with structure to it and shadow. And then B2, we're just looking at the end of that little pipe or half pipe I was looking at. We go up to the upper right to B3, and we still see it very much looks like the end of a pipe, or half pipe shape rather. See what you think is going on in this overall scene. I'm not sure if this whole thing is one big Cloaking Craft, or this is one piece, and down here is another, and maybe even a third or fourth. Once again, see what you think on this one. Okay, on the left is the original, the right's the enhanced, and I'm just looking, this overall scene just seemed a little strange. Looking at this cloud where my cursor is and the way it's peeling off in tiers and kind of striated. And then over here with the enhanced version, I was just trying to get at what is going on in this overall scene. And the color signatures too are golden at the top, yet white down below with this beam seemingly coming up. Couldn't really figure this one out. It was just a little intriguing. There seems to be something happening also down here on the edge of this thing. So this to me looks like a bunch of little Cloaking Craft springing out this way on angle, and maybe in here too, like drifting off on this angle. Again, see what you think is going on. Alright, we're going to zoom in on that little piece that I talked about, and here I'm just calling it A, and it's just really odd. It looks like it has to be some type of Cloaking Craft. It has symmetry to it in a triangular way, plus like this I don't even know what to say, like a pipe reaching off of it. And we're going to look at it with some enhancements, see what I'm talking about. This looks like a standalone object of some type. We go up into the upper right-hand corner and look at it in a little more detail. And look at this pipe. It looks like even there's a triangular opening on it as well, almost like a flute that would have instead of a round hole, it would have a triangular one. Anyway, see what you think is going on with this. I'm just documenting it for now as something happening in this time frame. Alright, this is called Cloaking Object and Activity, so what was strange about this scene was not only the way these little outcroppings are coming off what's supposed to be like a typical cumulus cloud, although it also didn't quite look like that, but then we see some disturbed activity off to the right here, and I've been watching these things long enough along the rims to know that this looks like it's starting to get agitated as something is starting to take off or launch from either the top of one of these clouds or in this case the side. And even the more we look, you kind of see a shape here, looks like it has some structure and symmetry to it. But my focus too is going to be on A, because this thing started drifting in. It looks like there's a crystalline triangle here as well. And this little object, let's just say cloaking object, stayed in the scene and traveled all the way across the sky a good long time. So that's why I think it's a cloaking object. Here we go with some enhancement. We just see this down here. This becomes more apparent that it's a symmetrical form. Looks like it has some geometry and structure to it. And then we start to see this more of a triangle here above. And then we're going to keep going, and nearby was this long strand of something that looks like crystalline activity happening in there, and we're going to look at that with a little more enhancement. And B started to also look very interesting, this thing with a split in it, that again, neither of these look like any typical clouds that I've ever known in decades of being on this planet. And then we start to put enhancement to see what's really going on. Now this has to be some type of cloaking or interdimensional object of some type, because we've got, this is echoing this point almost like either there's a force field in front of it carving that out or something. And then look at this, the way it's split, and we've got like tufted cloaking material or something happening here out on the edge. So to me this has got to be a cloaking craft as well, and this gets all strange here too. And then we're going to zoom in on each of these things, and again this thing is split. It's got some rounded features here. That other one with that line in front of it is here, and then it starts to yield a little bit of a color signature. And then look at this stuff still traipsing beyond. It has to be something that's either phasing in and out of dimension or is interdimensional in a different way. And when I say 3D craft cloaking, I'm referring to something that you can knock on, that's tangible, tactile, that you can touch. But some of these things might also be interdimensional, where you can't. Or some of these examples might be a 3D craft that happens to be in the middle of phasing in and out. Hard to say, so just see what you think on any of these photos. Alright, this starts to get interesting. So we're talking about a cloaking object activity. Here's that little thing we were showing before, that little triangular wisp of a thing has now since traveled across from where it was over here. And I'm showing A because this is one of those examples where you watch the rim of the clouds. It looks like some Cloaking Craft is just springing off from it with that kind of motion and energy burst. So we're going to take a look at all of this. So 8.1, we're playing around with the enhancement to get at what is going on here. 8.2, we're zooming in. Definitely looks like some intelligent design happening here. Then we keep going. 8.3 is that same thing we were just looking at, but now it's looking more diamond-like in shape. Well, this little triangular wisp thing is still here, and these little bits are also shooting off, which look like ET, advanced tech, or just advanced tech in general, but it looks like either sensors or little craft, springing up out of here as well. And I say that because we're going to see a sequence in a minute that's showing this. So here's with some enhancement. Again, you get a good look at these little bits. 8.5 is showing now that thing has morphed more into a diamond shape. We've got weird structure happening here, like a shield at the bottom. And again, these start to look more, dimensional, like flattened orbs. Okay, now this is a little bit bitmappy and fuzzy, but I just wanted to bring this side by side of that original form emerging out of here, and then what becomes more of a triangular form if you follow my cursor. And then we're just going to go down, so like 8.2 to 8.2a, I'm just zooming in a little bit more, and I know it's bitmappy, bear with me, but just to see if it reveals any more character in this thing, the face of this thing. And then we go from 8.5, looking at that diamond shape down here. And again, I was just trying to see if any other little clues would pop up. I didn't get too much just because it is a little bit bitmappy. Now we're going to look at this long thing again. We're going to jump back over here, and we see a triangular imprint in here. Again, we see like another triangular edge of one here. So what is this thing? Oh, and then also on this rim of this cloud, we see something strange kind of popping up out of here as well. And we put some contrast on it. We see that clear triangle. I'm not exactly sure what this strand is. And then we're going to look at it again. The end of this strand, we see something kind of starting to develop here where my cursor is at 8.2. And then we look up with more enhancement at 8.3, it gets a little more defined. But I still don't know what this thing is. It looks like some type of craft with some cloaking material plasma around it. But, is it 3D? Is it something more interdimensional? I have no idea. All right, this is a really fun sequence, so hang in there with me on this one. This is Cloaking Object Activity, and watch where my cursor is. So I don't have labels on this one, but here's still that remnant of that weird strand that had come across. You're seeing a burst of the sunrise coming out from beyond. But look at this. We've got these little bits and fragments in this thing, so pay attention to what happens to that as we move along. I'm going to kind of go through in a fast sequence, and then when you have more free time, you can toggle back and forth and see everything. So here we go. Watch that little area. Here's with some enhancement. You can see it clearly. We've got some shadow on this thing. So to me, these are little, this has got to be some type of craft, and these are little sensors or little companion craft. I'm not sure which. I also have some weird things happening here beyond that look like craft at a little farther distance that might be cloaking. Now, here we go. We're going to go from bottom up. So that's that scene I just showed you. Go to the middle photo, and this is that little time lapse, standstill, still frame time lapse here. So here we have this scene. A few seconds later, it morphs into this. So we have three little fragments become one, and this thing starts to change shape. And then we go up a minute later, and now it's all gone. So, it's really strange how that thing was moving through the sky from the top of that rim of that cloud. And then here I'm just zooming in on that. So we've got this, this, and then it just becomes this. What's weird too is that like weird strand through the sky starts to morph and change as well, where we have a curl on the end of it. Just a lot of interesting things going on in this scene. All right, here's a similar thing, except now we have what this looks like, a cloaking craft, very like kind of light body craft. And this too, look at these little fragments as we move along, and then they become looking like this, and then, it starts to do something like this. This is just a bird. So a lot of weird activity on this rim, and then it kind of like dissipates, but then we have something symmetrical here with these 2 points with a bar. It's just really odd looking. And then this object starts to move off into the distance and vanish. I saw that happen. So what the heck is going on with these crafts or these objects? And then up here in the upper right is just a zoom in on this. We're starting to get a color signature on this. We've got a hole on each side, looks symmetrical. Sometimes I wonder if these things aren't even craft, if there's some type of organisms with a kind of a cloak on them as well, living organism. See what you think with any of this stuff though. All right, this is just called Cloaking Object Activity, as we'll get to a slide coming up. But here is a crescent moon. It just looked really eerily beautiful. There was like an opening in the clouds. There's this brighter white light source, presumably the moon. Well, actually, this is the moon. I'm sorry. A brighter white light source beyond that didn't look like it was coming from the setting sun, because this was well past sunset at 6:03, when the sunset pretty much is happening around 5:30, 5:35 on this particular day. And then we also have some weird kind of ethereal lighting happening back in here. So the overall scene was pretty puzzling, but it did feel pretty magical. So here's with some enhancement on it, just to give you the idea of this light source coming from behind the moon somewhere that was not the setting sun. We've got some warmer color tone here happening, golden tone this way, while you have like a brighter cyan happening beyond. Just very strange. And then the shape of these clouds started to become very interesting to watch. What exactly was going on here, I'm not sure. So here we zoom in closer to that little crescent moon, and we start to see these shapes. So I got to believe that these were cloaking craft, because they each have a unique shape. This is actually even symmetrical, and they're just really odd coming off of this fringe of this cloud. Here's with some exaggerated enhancement to look at the red color signature popping up here. And again, just seeing these objects, become more pronounced and obvious. And then this is just looking at the moon, a slightly different angle, and then that was Jupiter above. And then here we have unusual fog at sunrise. Fog started to roll in, which is very atypical in this area in South Florida. But then I noticed just some strange geometry poking up here. So I thought that would be good to take a look at with some enhancement. In this case, we took all color out just to focus on this particular shape, and actually its shapes, because if you look, it looks like a rounded, it looks like a triangular form with rounded edges, and then one banking a little bit tilted on a different angle is another triangle. So we're going to look at that zoomed in a little bit more. Again, pardon the bitmappiness of it, but you start to see, if you follow my cursor, that that's the one triangle, and then there's another little triangle leaning on its side next to it. So that's pretty much it for this week. This is the photo of the week, and it's the close of the show. I just want to say thanks for puzzling over things here with me a while, and just occasionally I like to throw in a a wordplay game result of a board game we were playing. I think you know which one it is. So see if any of these words jump out at you and mean anything to you. We don't play for points, and we only use positive or neutral words wherever possible, just to make it a little more fun. All right, so anyway, wish everybody actually a beautiful close to 2020. I know it has been one heck of a year, but hopefully we can all take the positives out of it, and I'm sure we've all learned some lessons from it. If not, we're going to be facing them in 2021, so I hope you did. Anyway, best wishes to everyone for a very happy new year ahead. Healthy, happy new year. Best wishes and peace to everyone. Thanks so much. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.